common area of discussion and confusion for golfers is how to play a bunker shot, a standard greenside bunker shot. What should you be doing both at setup and throughout the swing to increase your chances of success? And how can you use the HackMotion wrist sensor to help you understand what the wrists should do in a standard greenside bunker shot? Well, we're going to answer all of those questions in this video as I go through setup, grip and swing to help you become more proficient from the sand. A large part of the success or failure of a greenside bunker shot will be determined just at setup, before you even swing. How you address the ball and how you grip the club will determine to a large extent whether you're going to hit a good shot or find yourself hitting again from the sand. So let's run through the setup pieces that are critical to being good inside the bunker. And I'm going to start with how to stand with your body. Then we're going to address the grip, which is extremely important, before we even get into what to do with the swing. So taking my setup here, I'm aiming at this first flag. One of the things I would tell you to do to begin with would be to have a wide stance where you place your feet and bury your feet into the sand. The width of your stance here would be determined by having them wider than your shoulders and wider than your pelvis. We're doing that to help give us a nice foundation and a firm base, whereby I can place a lot of my weight on my lead side and still be very stable. If I had my feet too close together, I wouldn't really be able to place as much pressure or weight into my lead side. So very wide stance. And just from this down the line view, notice how it's relatively square to even slightly closed with my feet. That's in contrast to a lot of traditional bunker technique discussion, but really it avoids you getting too steep and across the ball for this shot. You can have a very shallow delivery for a good bunker shot, and so having the feet square to even slightly closed will help you to do that. From that wide stance, notice how my feet are flared out, and then the primary thing here is going to be my lead leg and my lead knee flexed consciously and excessively over the top of my lead foot. I'm going to try and maintain that feel throughout the swing once I start to move the club. I don't want this leg or knee moving inwards, which would result in my weight moving off the ball. We're trying to stay very stable, very fixed in this forward position. So feet flared out, lead knee flexed, keep it flexed during the backswing. You'll notice my ball position is also forwards. It's almost underneath my lead shoulder as a reference, more or less. I'm trying to hit the sand slightly before the ball when I'm playing this shot, and if I'm going to be successful, I certainly need to do that. So having the golf ball position forward of my regular ball position would make it more likely for me to strike the sand before I strike the ball, which is again is what I'm trying to do in this scenario. So ball position forward, I've got the stick on the ground to help you to see that. Feet turned out, lead knee very flexed and forwards, and then the club itself positioned in a relatively straight up and down position like so. I don't mind a little bit of shaft lean, but I don't want to see excessive shaft lean. I'm almost using the stick on the ground there just to line up my club shaft with. This is a good foundation for where to start from for a bunker technique. Very different to almost any other shot you'd hit. So take your time to understand. You're going to have a wider base, your feet turned out, the knee flex is key, feeling like you stay very much fixed over that front leg, both at setup and then throughout the swing. Quick question for you. Did you know that 80% of your golf ball's direction comes from the club face angle at impact? And it's your wrists that control that angle. If you want to hit straighter shots and add more distance to your game, then check out the link in the description below. Next, we need to talk about how to hold the club, the grip and the position of the hands on the club and the position of the club itself at setup. It's worth noting at this point in time that one of the keys to being good out of the greenside bunker is being able to keep loft and deliver that loft to the shot. So loft is here going to be visualized and help you to see this with the rod that I've placed onto the club head here, this magnetic rod. And we want to be able to swing fast. Greenside bunker shot requires a reasonable amount of club head speed, and if we're opening the club face, we're not going to get a lot of energy out of the loft, so we need to get that energy out of the swing. Holding on to this loft, setting up with it, and then swinging it with it and keeping it throughout the stroke is really one of the determining factors of how good or bad of a bunker player you'll be. And oftentimes people are being told to do the exact opposite of what I'm about to tell you in your full swing, which makes bunker shots more challenging and tricky for you to pull off. There's a very different wrist movement for bunkers than pretty much every other shot out there, maybe with the exception of a high lob shot that you would hit around the green. So we're discussing this concept of loft. I want to talk to you about a couple of ideas. Number one, start with the club face more open at setup. So you're going to rotate the face open like so. Oftentimes people look down at the club face in this condition and worry that it's pointing too far off to the side. But you'll see from this down the line view when I'm using this rod, that opening up the lob wedge really doesn't shift the directional part of this shot more to the right. It really just moves the loft more up, so it gives more elevation. So we're going to open the face at setup, and then we're going to make a very distinctive movement here with the lead wrist. Number one, we're going to rotate or pronate the hand more over and lower the handle, keeping the shaft down. That's going to set me up here with more extension in this lead wrist than I would have for a standard shot. You'll see on the HackMotion there, it's around 31 degrees of extension. Lowering the handle and having the extension built in at setup to this lead wrist is part of what helps me to keep that extension as I swing back. You'll notice there the extension number stays relatively stable. A great way to think about keeping the face open would be to point this rod, if you don't have one of these, I'd encourage you to pick one up, they're very useful. Point this rod towards you both at setup, through the backswing. Notice how the rod is still pointing directly towards me, keeping this extension in my lead wrist. And then as I swing down and I follow through, I also keep the loft or the rod, the club face if you like, pointing directly back at me. Again, that's keeping that extension in the lead wrist. If I take that off for a second and show you how I would then place my right hand onto the club, I would place that also on top as much as possible, feeling like my palm was pointing down. This lower handle with added extension in both wrists means that as I swing back, I'm able to keep the loft on this club face whilst swinging very quickly. I can create lots of speed without closing the face. That's really what we're looking for with a good bunker shot. Extension in the lead wrist, keep that extension going back, keep that extension coming through. The extension is the open club face. So if I'm successful at setting up with my grip, extremely pronated lead arm, extreme pronated trail arm as well, hand on top, shaft more or less straight up and down. I mentioned I don't mind a little bit of shaft lean, but we certainly don't want too much. And I've now got this thing lined up almost directly here under my lead shoulder. We talked about the setup already, we've got our body in position. Key elements here once I've got set and ready to go is making sure I maintain that flex in my lead knee as I swing back and as I swing through. The minute I start to push up and stand up, I'm going to raise the bottom of the swing. I'm going to potentially start thinning and topping the ball into the face of the bunker. Once I'm set up and ready to go, I mentioned right at the beginning of this video, I really feel like 95% of the success or failure of the bunker shot is determined at setup. When I get into this position with the correct grip, the correct club location, and the correct setup, I really just think about swinging hard and hitting down, thumping the club into the sand. I'm really trying to think about just landing that club in the sand just behind the ball. Get lots of height on that, nice trajectory on that ball, good contact with the sand, and because of the way I was holding the club and because of the way I'd gripped the club there, I kept plenty of loft on the club face. I'm not going to run into the problem of closing the club face, which a lot of people do. So there's your setup. Dig your feet in, keep your stance square to slightly closed, really, really wide. Maintain that lead knee flex, almost pointing it towards the target. I'd even tell you to turn the lead foot out 45 or even more degrees towards the target. Really helps to keep you forward. Excessive extension in the lead wrist, extension in the trail wrist, pushing down on this grip, keeping that extension, keeping that extension. Hit the sand and follow through. That one was even better than the first one, really came out nice and crisp. So I've got quite a lot of lip to deal with here. That ball's going to comfortably get over the top of the bunker. It's going to land softly and stop with a lot of control. The final thing to try to remember when you actually go ahead and hit these shots is being able to commit to a certain amount of speed. A lot of the time people will get scared in the bunker of hitting the ball hard because you've had the negative experience of watching the ball sail across the other side of the green. That's because we haven't been low enough into the ground. That's because we haven't hit the sand with enough force. So think about hitting down, being confident that you're taking lots of sand, using the bounce that's designed on these clubs and the loft that you've built in at setup to make sure this ball pops out nice and high. There's your basic standard bunker shot that I would encourage you to practice until you get very good at it. It's a shot that a lot of people don't have to begin with, and then when they do try to practice bunker shots, the only time they ever practice is when they find themselves inside one on the golf course. Take some time just to practice even the grip on its own and just the wrist mechanics of keeping the club face looking back at you throughout the entire swing. You can do that at home without even hitting a ball, learning how those wrists should work. And if you've got the HackMotion wrist sensor, you're going to be able to monitor that extension of that wrist both in the backswing, downswing, and into the follow through. I've already mentioned quite a different feeling to a regular shot. I hope that was helpful. If you'd like more HackMotion wrist training videos, you can click on the link that's down in the description of this video. And if you'd like further HackMotion training bunker videos, let me know in the comments.